It's really hard to reach people that are climate skeptics, and I don't think I can convince them with any science. So I'll try to convince you if you're a climate skeptic with baking an apple pie. It's a very simple process. It's a very old process, and the result is delicious. So I really, suggest that you try it too. It's really nice. It's a Dutch recipe. You need some apples. Doesn't really matter how they look because you're gonna use only part of it. Raisins, some eggs. These are biological eggs, free roaming chickens. An oven. This is a gas oven, very bad for climate change. First you put these raisins in a little bowl with water so they can absorb some. They get tastier. You have to cut the apple. Apples grows on trees. Trees are plants. Plants live in the environment, and the environment is changing everywhere. Plants try to migrate and change the way they live, but it's really very hard. Evolution really didn't count on the high temperatures that some areas are seeing. It's just a big change since a few thousand years. If you're a skeptic, you might say, well, it has been very hot millions of years ago. You have to realize that all the animals that lived then don't live anymore. It's just a different species. There have been extinctions. And we're really moving towards an extinction right now. If you're actually trying to make this apple pie, it's nice because it's a physical process. It has some aspects that are the same with our ecosystem, atmosphere, science in general. And that is that you have things that you really need. You have to follow a specific process, and otherwise you'll never have an apple pie. You don't get an apple pie without apples. You need some sugar. As you can see here, I'm cutting up some cane sugar with a knife, and I'm cutting up some other fruits just to add to the mix. But without adding sugar to the flour and doing all the other stuff later, you won't get an apple pie. So there's just rules you have to follow in order to get the result. That's the same with our atmosphere. We have to have carbon dioxide at low levels, otherwise all the temperatures around the world will change, and all the animals will try to migrate, and they won't find their food anymore, and the oceans become acidic, and everything dies basically. That's the whole point. Now you might not believe that that's a problem, but I think you really have to look again whether it's a problem. Because already in the garden of my mother, which are quite big gardens, we're seeing changes. We see insects that weren't there before from Italy are now in Holland. Spiders from Italy. Anyway, I'm mixing it up here with the cinnamon and the raisins and the apples. I got the old apple too. I cut it up and put it in there. Here's also, you see, it's an absolute process. You need 150 grams of butter. If you do 200 grams or 50 grams, you don't get the same result. And you can measure that. You have measurement on the butter package, you can see it. Here I'm cutting it up. Take butter that's not too cold, because that's too hard to cut, but not too warm too. Put it in a bowl, cut it up. And then after cutting it up a little bit, you can add the flour. And it's real butter. This is just like it was made 100 years ago. There's no additives. It's not margarine. On the package it says you can use margarine too, but there's nothing more disgusting than apple pie made with margarine, in my opinion. Never use artificial ingredients. There's only one here, I think, and that's the stuff that makes the dough rise, because that used to be yeast, but we don't use it anymore. Anyway, adding an egg to make the dough, and it's a miracle process. I'm cutting it up, mixing it around. I'll be, how do you call that, molding it or something with my hands. Wash them first. And I'm making the brain of Lord Monckton. Lord Monckton is a liar. He has been a liar all his life. The way that the rich people work, if they are so inclined, is to simply find enough fools to support them in a democratic voting process. So the people that vote for Republicans, for instance, that vote for Lord Monckton are either super rich or they are stupid. And if they're stupid enough, they'll vote for the Republicans. The Republicans never do what is good for the people. The corporations never do what's good for the general public. They just don't. It's not in their business model. They might pretend to be green, but it's just not true. You might think it's true, but everybody together right now is making the human species go extinct, or at least become very, very nearly extinct. Why? Well, you see that we always think, I have these apples and this flour and all this stuff here. We think that there's a food supply and food reserve. Well, World Bank says there's no longer any food reserves. That's why you get the volatility in price of food. Why do you have no food reserves? Well, because agricultural land is going out of production. Why? Because of global warming. Why? Because of greenhouse gases. See? That's the way it works. And that's a big problem. You can't really survive. You have to fight over your food. You'll be fighting first and then you might survive. Anyway, I put it in the oven. Just to show you, here's a map of the world. Most of the oceans are dying. It's just a fact. You look it up. Here's Europe. The gray area in the middle is Holland, where I am. This is America, Canada. Beautiful land. You got lots of sunshine there in Mexico. Here's the Republicans, Boehner, proposing a budget that creates a deficit of 3.7 trillion. Of course, it's all going into tax cuts for the rich. And all these rich people, they're simply paying other people to lie. And if you regurgitate those lies as a climate skeptic, you're just, very dumb actually, because you don't get paid. You don't get rich off it. Get rich. If you want to be a paid-for spammer, blogger, whatever, want to be a troll on websites, then at least get some money for it. Here you can see it's funny because the pie ended up being unevenly baked, which is something you might identify with because you have a single temperature in the oven, supposedly, but still that's not mean that temperatures are uniform everywhere. So you can have hot places on Earth and warmer places and colder places on Earth because of climate change. But the average temperatures of the planet is going up.